to talk about the new main event for UFC Fight Island, UFC 251 at Fight Island. Rather than Gilbert Burns fighting for the Usman for the welterweight title, Jorge Masvidal has stepped in at short notice because Gilbert Burns tested positive for COVID-19. Now, commiserations to Gilbert Burns. I was looking forward to that fight. I think he presented some interesting issues for Kamaru Usman, not least of which that they're training partners. They train at the same gym. It's very rare that you see that happen, that you see two fighters that are willing to fight each other from the same gym, let alone be a title fight. So it was actually a very interesting proposition. But the original fight that we wanted really was Jorge Masvidal against Kamaru Usman. So it was a bit of a blow when it seemed like the UFC couldn't come to terms with Jorge Masvidal for that title fight. But it seems that COVID-19 is the gift that keeps on giving, because as a result of it, we've now got the original fight that, let's be realistic, is the fight that we all wanted. So, I am looking forward to this one. How can you not root for Masvidal a little bit? Look at the year he's had. You know what I mean? He starched Darren Till. He then did that famous flying knee on Ben Askren. You know, this would be. The momentum is definitely in his favour. And all sports, I do believe that all sports they are largely based on momentum. You know, and fighting is no different. If you've got momentum going your way, I feel like that can really help you out. That being said, obviously Masvidal's coming in as a huge underdog. I had him at plus 350 earlier on in the week, that's a good price. Plus 3.50 underdog, and Usman's coming in at the plus 1.33 favourite, rightfully so, because Usman is a bit good, isn't he? He's a bit good, because I've been going back through some of their fights, and I'll start with Kamaru Usman. For a start, he does have the height and reach advantage over Masvidal. Masvidal used to fight at lightweight. I don't think that Usman could realistically get down to lightweight. I don't think he's a big guy. He's a big dude. 6 foot. He's got a 76-inch reach, whereas Masvidal's 5'11", 74-inch reach. And Usman, whilst obviously he's famous for being able to wrestle, that's one of his. That's one of the things that he does very well. But people forget that he is actually pretty good on the feet as well. If you watch his fight against Covington, that was his last fight. They didn't really wrestle at all. It just played out on the feet. Now, I'm not saying that Colby Covington is as good a striker and presents the same problems as Jorge Masvidal. However, there were things that Usman did that were quite impressive. His straight right, for instance, he fights best from the orthodox stance, first of all. So his straight right is extremely fast. It's very, very fast. He was unloading that, and it was just that straight right. He'd just go with the back, and then bang, the straight right. It just moved so quickly. There's a lot of power on it, and Masvidal tends to get hit with straight punches more than the looping hooks and things like that. So I think that is a potential issue for Masvidal, even on the feet, even taking the wrestling out of it, because against Nate Diaz, the main shots that Diaz got through were the straight shots, straight down the middle. Seems like Masvidal wasn't defending those particularly well. But keeping back on Kamaru Usman for a moment, obviously the guy can wrestle for days. We know that. If he gets Masvidal down to the floor and gets it into top position, he can control people from that position, as well as anybody in the sport, past, present. Do you know what I mean? He's so good there. But he's also kind of just deceptively good at closing the distance. But there are ways that, there are little openings here and there. One thing that he does like to do, for some reason, as I said, Usman fights best from an orthodox stance, but he loves this body kick. It's like a front kick to the body. He throws it all the time. He really likes that kick. And it's a good kick. It's good for taking the wind out of your opponent's sails. It's a decent way to try and kind of bring fatigue on in your opponent so they start making mistakes. It adds up on the judges. But what he does is he kind of steps forward as he throws it, and then he ends up in southpaw stance. And in southpaw, he does attack, pretty much just as well as he does from orthodox, but his defense goes out the fucking window. Honestly, watch his fight against Colby Covington. Every time he switched to that southpaw stance, Colby Covington was lighting him up, really lighting him up. He landed some shots where it looked like if he followed up, he could have finished that. Because we forget that before, obviously, Usman got the TKO victory in the 5th round against Colby Covington. That was, most people had that 2 apiece going into the 5th and final round. It was a close fight. It was back and forth, and a lot of that back was when Usman was standing in southpaw stance, because his defense just seems to crumble. He just doesn't seem to keep it tight. But if you look at him in orthodox, it's tight. His guard is always up. His guard is there. Do you know what I mean? When his jab goes out, his chin's tucked, and then the right goes out. And like I said, that right straight is fantastic, but mainly from an orthodox stance. If he makes the mistake of switching stances against Jorge Masvidal, I do think has more power than Colby Covington. Colby Covington he's said in interviews in the past that he throws his shots at about a 70% clip because he likes to hit with volume. Masvidal is not that guy. Masvidal, if he lands a left hook on you, there's a good chance that he'll knock you out. Ask Darren Till about that. Ask Darren Till about Masvidal's left hook. Do you know what I mean? It's like it's kind of looping, like overhand. Either way, he's got power and he can put him out. The other thing that Usman likes to do, he likes to throw the uppercut. He likes a right body uppercut, and it's a very effective weapon when he lands it. Right, when it lands, because not being funny, but getting uppercutted to the ribs against Usman is gonna suck. It's just gonna suck. It's plain and simple, isn't it? But the thing is, it's like, yeah, okay, when he lands it, and the likelihood is that he does land it, but when he throws it, that whole area is exposed. That whole area. I'm thinking maybe a left high kick, you know? Like, Masvidal's got some really good kicks on him. And one thing Masvidal does very well, deceptively well, is defend takedowns. He's fought some grapplers before. He fought Damian Maia. Obviously, he lost a close, I think it might have been a split decision, that one. But either way, he was making it very difficult for Maia to take him down to the ground. He showed that he sprawls extremely well, and he was sprawling extremely well in the 3rd round as well. But one thing I would say, in that 3rd round against Damian Maia, he did look very tired, which this could be a problem in a fight against Usman, because Usman doesn't get tired. Usman has been in a fight camp. He's had this booked for quite a while. Like, Jorge Masvidal has stepped in at 6 days' notice. What kind of shape is he in? I'm sure he's in good shape all the time, but is he in fight shape? That's a crucial question, because Masvidal, he does tend to slow down as the fight goes on. Round number 3, he tends to just kind of, he looks like he's breathing heavier. And against Diaz, Diaz had a pretty good round number 3 against Jorge Masvidal before they stopped that fight. So, I mean, I'm not saying that the result of that fight would have changed, but I'm just saying that Masvidal definitely looked more tired. Because he throws with a lot of explosiveness, so that is going to tire you out. That being said, he had a 5-rounder against Benson Henderson, another guy who is a very good wrestler, who really struggled to get Jorge Masvidal down to the floor. Jorge Masvidal defended single legs and also in the clinch as well. The clinch, he's surprisingly strong. Like, I think that Usman might be surprised at how strong Masvidal is in the clinch, because when he's in the clinch, he's very good at getting his arms in a position where he's dominant, and then if he gets the overhook, he throws the elbow over the top of it. And that elbow is devastating, because that's the one, like, he clipped Nate Diaz with that, and then hit him with a head kick, and then went down and did some more damage. And it was all that damage that really won him the fight, because, you know, that's when the doctor called it. And I'm not saying that Usman's not going to be able to get him down if he grapples with it, because obviously there's a good chance that he is, because Usman is an absolute beast. But, you know, we could see a surprise in the clinch with Jorge Masvidal. He seems to be perfectly happy there. Another thing that Jorge Masvidal likes to do in the clinch is go for submissions and scrambles, because he actually tried to get a Darce choke on Damian Maia, and Damian Maia is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu legend. And whilst, I mean, it looked like it was, you know, it was getting to the point of going in, but it's, you know, trying to submit Damian Maia, you know, it's going to be a tough task. The guy he lives and breathes Jiu-Jitsu. But it just shows that Masvidal, he's at least aware, and he does go for those submissions. Because he did a similar thing against Benson Henderson. I think it was in round 4, maybe round 5. But in the clinch, like against the fence, you know, Henderson left his head in the wrong position for just a fraction of a second. And straight away, no, Masvidal, he's going for that high elbow guillotine. Do you know what I mean? And he had him like right the way up. Henderson actually had to drop down to his back onto the ground in order to try and escape it. So what I'm saying is that Masvidal does recognise when the submissions are there, and when there's going to be a lot of grappling exchanges in this fight, because Usman, he's going to probably want to grapple. I'm not saying he can't stand with him, but percentage-wise, he has his best chance of beating Jorge Masvidal if he grapples with him. If he leaves his head in the wrong place, there's a good chance that Masvidal is going to go for that guillotine. And if he's going for the guillotine, he could get the guillotine. And I always say, if anybody gives you 100 to 1 or better on anything, you take it. 101 to 1 for Jorge Masvidal to get the guillotine finish on Kamaru Usman. I'll have £2 on that all day. Lovely stuff. I mean, that is bloody terrible, because not only am I saying by submission, I'm specifying the actual submission, but you know what? I've seen strange things happen in mixed martial arts. However, percentage-wise, you've got to think that Usman's got the best chance of winning this fight. Don't get me wrong. I am rooting for Jorge Masvidal. Not that I'm rooting against Kamaru Usman, because I think Kamaru Usman, he's an excellent champion. He seems like a really great guy. He's an extremely polished fighter, and he's a great champion. He's going to be very difficult to beat, and he just, like I said, but how can you not root for Jorge Masvidal? Do you know what I mean? The guy comes out to the theme tune of Scarface, for God's sake. He comes out, he wears his heart on his sleeve. He's just a real fighter. He was a backyard brawler, kind of Kimbo Slice style. Do you know what I mean? There's something kind of romantic about that in terms of fighters. Do you know what I mean? You get a lot of athletes coming through now. Kamaru Usman, he's an athlete who can fight. Whereas Jorge Masvidal, he's a fighter who can also fight. And yeah, just Masvidal's been around for so long, I think it'd be a crying shame if he didn't get the belt. And so for that reason, I am rooting for Masvidal. Percentage-wise, gotta say that Usman's probably got the best chance of winning this fight. Now, he's excellent at controlling the grappling. As I said earlier, I think Jorge Masvidal, he does tend to get pretty tired around round 3. Now, that being said, against Benson Henderson, he sucked it up. He looked really tired in round 3, but he sucked it up and went all the way to round 5. And he kept going. He kept up a fairly decent pace. So whilst he looks visibly tired, he has the heart to carry it through. That being said, I do think that if I'm going to bet on Kamaru Usman, that's a good bet. How do you make that terrible, I hear you all ask? Well, what you do is you specify the round and the method. And considering in one of my other videos, specifying just the round with Max Holloway, you're getting 46 to 1 or 41 or something like that. But this is how confident the bookies are that Usman's going to win by TKO in round 4. It's only 13, plus 13. That's crazy. I mean, I am going to have a little bet on that, because I think that that's one of the most likely outcomes of the fight. That Masvidal, he's exhausted by round 4 because Usman has been grappling and pinning him down and beating him up for 3 rounds, and then round number 4, Usman gets into top position, really picks up the pace, and manages to do enough damage that the referee calls the fight. I think that's probably the most likely outcome. Again, now watch Usman win this one by head kick in round number 1. Now that I've said that. But it's, yeah, so that's one of my main bets. Round number 4, TKO for Kamaru Usman. But over the whole card, you've got 3 tremendous title fights on there. And again, I always say, if somebody gives you more than 100 to 1 on anything, you take it. Especially if you've got a £5 free bet in your account. So, I thought, what shall I do with that fight? How shall I squander that £5 free bet? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take Jose Aldo by knockout. I'm going to take Max Holloway by knockout. I'm going to take Kamaru Usman by knockout. Plus 123.75. So 123 to 1, £5 free bet. I'm taking that all day. That is just shockingly terrible. I have gone into more detail on the other 2 title fights in other videos there in the playlist. If you do enjoy the video, please like and subscribe and all that good stuff, and keep those bets bloody terrible.